Hi, and welcome to Dopamine and Doubt. I'm your host, Rachel, a licensed clinical social worker specializing in ADHD and OCD. On this show, I will be speaking from both my clinical and lived experience as we explore the surprisingly common crossover of ADHD and OCD. Because when we understand which is in the driver's seat, we are better able to know what we need in that moment. Whether you're living right at the intersection of both or navigate life with one of these neurotypes, you're welcome here. As always, please take what is helpful and leave what isn't. Neurodivergence shows up differently for everyone, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Okay, let's dive in. So I'm doing this first episode despite the fact that my OCD has really come up with all the ways it could go wrong, especially that lovely harm OCD and maybe hurting someone's feelings has showed up. But what I want to really highlight today is what we will talk about so many more times and what I see in my office pretty consistently. And that's this overlap of who's driving right now. Is it more of the ADHD or is the OCD in charge? And being able to understand that distinction is honestly, I would say, over half the battle, because this is a beautiful part also of who we are and of our brains. And we want to know, is it that we're acting from our own values or are we acting from fear? And so I decided one evening that I really want to continue this conversation. I was noticing in other podcasts that I really admire. One of my idols has always been Kimberly Quinlan from Your Anxiety Toolkit. And I was noticing the ADHD experts and all these wonderful podcasts have a single episode on this overlap between ADHD and OCD. And so I got really excited, as one will, as the dopamine hit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am going to help so many people. I love my job. So as I said earlier, I am a therapist. And I just love the connection between people and getting to talk about these things because I would say I'm lucky in that mental health is my hyper focus. And I could learn about it every second of the day and be happy. So I decide, okay, I'm going to do this podcast. It's just going to be a furthering of this job I already love. And I, of course, then impulsively bought all of the equipment online immediately. So I had a microphone stand, and headphones. And then I start researching into ADHD and OCD because, of course, I already specialize in this, but I need to know more. And that is when we switch from ADHD genuine excitement to, doubt. Here comes the OCD. So as we know, sometimes shipping can take a minute for things to get here. So in that time, the OCD completely took over and I went into this panic and harm OCD spiral of, oh my gosh, what if I offend someone? What if I accidentally say something that's incorrect? What if my talking about this subject inadvertently hurts someone? What if I am attacked online because I didn't know something perfectly? Once all these what ifs were swirling around, I began doing my other favorite compulsion, which is reassurance seeking very subtly. Man, can OCD be sneaky. So I was running the idea by my husband, and he was very supportive, as he always is, but I was hyper aware of any, doubts or not as excited as I was, which you could have been, that showed up. And so he didn't seem that enthusiastic. And I okay, he did, but in my brain, he didn't. And so I was instantly nervous. So then I went to a book club meeting with my therapist friends. And once again, I just like subtly put out this hypothetical thing that I was thinking about doing. And they were also really supportive. But I threw out my own fear of judgment, and everyone agreed that that was a possibility. And so my OCD was like, no, I wanted certainty. That's why I was asking you. And then I got even more nervous. And so following the equipment getting to my house, I have gone in and returned it 3 times and then stopped. Here we are on the day that I can no longer return it. And so I'm doing the podcast. And that's where actually we are. And that's that I realized 3 weeks later where I was, and that cycle that had happened, that happens to me all the time, that I try to let my clients know, like, we don't have to do any of this perfectly. I'm not a bad person because I got stuck in a OCD loop again. I catch it so much faster now, and I know my themes to look out for that used to take over so much of my life, and I would be feeling so scared. And there's some themes that, like this one, are still around for me, and I need to do more exposures on. So that's why this podcast is going to be an ultimate exposure, really putting myself out there. And there is a possibility for judgment or someone disagreeing with me, and that's okay. So I was back at work and doing more sessions, and just more and more I was seeing my folks struggling with this dynamic and the overlap that is, again, so misunderstood. And the realization that I really want to do this thing, and I don't want my OCD to win again. And then I became angry at myself of, okay, you literally specialize in this thing, and I should have caught it sooner. But then I practiced the self-compassion I tell all my clients to do. It's easy to say, it's harder to do. And I saw what had happened for what it was, this cycle. And I had gotten so excited. And then all the fear kicked in. And so we do the hard thing. Before my OCD was really managed, this cycle was so constant in my life. I think it actually masked the ADHD more so because it was usually in the driver's seat. So it shows up socially. It shows up in my parenting. It can show up in my work and any interests, because those are the things that are important to me. And OCD loves to attack what we value. And so you really want to know when OCD especially is in charge or getting in your way so that you can take that step back. So just to tell a little bit more about obsessive compulsive disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, there's a belief that 30% or more of individuals with one condition often have the other. While traditionally they're seen as opposites, one more difficulties with rigidity versus impulsivity, they actually share neurobiological similarities, and these things are usually seen earlier in our lives when we have both, and do tend to have more severity, and they're more challenging to treat because a lot of the times people will only be diagnosed with one because the other is maybe not as prevalent or just missed. They both affect the same part of the brain, which is the frontal lobe, and they can result in difficulty with set shifting and impulse control. And they have a lot of overlapping symptoms. They both cause difficulty focusing, but for different reasons. And this is what the whole podcast is going to be about, understanding these reasons. So ADHD is more due to a lack of focus or hyper focus on something we're interested in, where OCD, it's more due to an internal distraction from intrusive thoughts getting in our way. Both can have a need for things to be just right, leading to perfectionism. And they both really can affect our executive functioning, I should say. And again, that's going to be a huge topic in this podcast. So we can have difficulty with organization, time management, oh my gosh, planning, and again, the focus. ADHD is really driven by a need for stimulation or impulsive, inattentive action, where OCD is more driven by the need to alleviate anxiety from intrusive, unwanted thoughts that are ego dystonic. And ego dystonic just means that they aren't actually in line with what you value or want to happen. And so these overlaps make it difficult for clinicians to properly diagnose, and treating both requires a really tailored approach to the person. For example, some stimulant medications for ADHD might not work for someone with OCD because they can make the symptoms worse. But I've also seen them be amazing for some folks. So it really becomes this experiment to figure out what works for you. And I know that's really hard. The gold standard treatment for OCD is a version of cognitive behavioral therapy called exposure and response prevention, while ADHD's gold standard is more a behavioral medication type approach. And we're going to kind of see how in this podcast we can combine those treatments to make them more specific for people in this overlap. And again, I'm not saying I have all the answers by any means, but these are things that I have noticed have been helpful for my clients and are helpful for me. And so I just want that conversation to happen more often so that others can maybe see themselves and fully understand what's going on for them, and get to live a beautiful life and enjoy things even more. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace professional mental health care. If you are struggling, please reach out to a qualified mental health provider who can work with you directly. What I share here comes from my clinical experience and my own journey, but your situation is unique to you. If you are in crisis, please contact 988 or go to your nearest emergency room. Thanks for being here.